yeah. Are you good?
I am good.
Meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Welcome to Monday. We'll just get right into it. I guess I see on the agenda here we have, and I see you sitting there, building and planning. So that must
I'm
be
here.
where
Good-
we're starting.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. It's nice to be first on the list. And I like this 9 o'clock hour. It's helpful for us. I handed out our December 2023 end of month reports. They're looking pretty. We did well for 2023, just year end, but the numbers are up. We've maintained. I was a little worried. It's kind of slowed down a little bit with our inspections, but the numbers have come in, and we have, on the planning side, we have 40 planning clearances that were done in December. And so that just, another telltale sign that there is still activity going on people's properties. So that's a good thing. So I'll leave those with the board, but the counter has been hopping lately. I don't know what the deal is. I think now that the holidays are over, we have been busy. As soon as we open in the morning, we've got customers. So the applications are coming in, and we think that they will. I'll make this prediction. We'll think that we'll be busier probably in March. If the building code change goes into effect in the middle of March, we think we'll be busy getting everybody's applications in before the new code changes happen. So we're hopeful.
That's what I was thinking. You're probably going to be busy.
Yeah.
Trying
That's
to get
good.
stuff in before that.
And we'll welcome it. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll grandfather all of them in too, so they can go under the old code, the current code.
Questions about that?
Yeah.
I don't know where the prohibition on natural gas is. Can you update me on that?
Do that. You have to come up. You have to come up.
State building code?
You're speaking to that which wound its way through the Ninth Circuit? Through the Ninth Circuit? Yes.
No, I thought in Olympia there was discussion about wanting to ban natural gas in any new buildings.
Yes, they are currently working through that, given the determination, or say the judgment of the Ninth Circuit.
Oh.
And the intent is to use heat pumps in lieu of other, fossil fuels. And that's currently being worked through the State Building Code Council. My understanding is currently they're not going to prohibit the use of natural gas. However, the attraction will be for heat pumps such that, I don't know how to say this, you will be inclined to choose the heat pumps.
There'll be some inducement of some kind.
Yeah.
Either the carrot or the stick or both.
Yeah.
But the heat pump doesn't bother me too much. I mean, it bothers me that any mandate, because heat pumps are actually a very nice approach. But in the kitchen, the gas stove, I thought, was being mandated out. That has happened in some places in this state, right?
Not under the jurisdiction of the Ninth Circuit. They have not been able to preclude them from using gas.
So let me get this straight. The Ninth Circuit Court is somehow, the judicial system is somehow involved in this?
Yes. It began with the city of Berkeley challenging the prohibition of gas-fired appliances in restaurants.
Oh, and the circuit says you can or cannot prohibit?
Yeah, the judgment was that they could not prohibit them from using it.
Ah, thank you. Okay, now I understand.
Yeah, so, but creative as lawmakers tend to be, they've been working on it ever since.
Okay, but for the public at the moment, that is not a concern over the next 12 months.
My understanding, no. But as I said, they are still working on the energy code, the commercial applications at the State Building Code Council level. And, as the target is March 15th, we'll see how that works out.
That's consistent with what you told us last fall, I think, during our budget hearings.
Yes.
He said it had been delayed until
Yes.
their hearing and the codes meeting.
There is
in
a
March.
State Building Code Council hearing on the 12th, this Friday, with regard to the residential code, I believe, but that is with family care housing, that sort of thing. And then there's another State Building Code Council meetings later in the month. And then again, I think they're revisiting it in February with regard to energy code. So have to see how things develop.
I'd like to know how we're doing in housing in the county. And one way to do that is to say, assume a number like 2010, there were so many houses or so many homes, and how many homes have been added since then on an annual basis, or barring that available. How are we doing over the past couple of years in increasing the stock of housing in the county? And excuse me, that would be interesting for the obvious reasons of we've got a housing crunch, but I would also like to see there's a price for a house. I put $10 in, I built the house, and I'm selling it for $100 now. So there's the price of the house, $100, but there's a cost at 10. Somehow, if we could get a handle on what those numbers are, it could have an impact on the policies we might want to follow or not follow. Probably not at our level because we don't have that kind of control, but I wouldn't mind making sure people understand how the cost of housing is going. And last year, about early spring, it seemed like there were going to be several hundred new homes on the market. Homes meaning either apartments or condos or SF or single family dwellings. Can we get those numbers at some point? Is that something you've got a handle on?
Well, yes, the sheer numbers of housing stock increase. Yes, we could come up with that number.
Okay. And then in keeping, there's a nice, like the police keep a record of closure. So these many crimes were reported, and these many were solved or closed. And the new units have begun and so forth. I really like to see them paired up with the final occupancy permit being issued on them.
So you want the total number of issued permits and then how many actually got their occupancy for their finaled?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can run that report for you.
if
We can add it to this monthly report if you'd like for starting in January.
Yeah. A question about the monthly report is I hate to say this because you've done such a nice job. I look at the things from top down, and this is a little bit in between. So but you're doing the right thing. You're presenting me what the differences are. Like I just heard the news earlier this week, or it can't be earlier this week, sometime not long ago, that one of the major homeowners stock shot up. And I'm scratching my head and I'm thinking, why? And it may be pertinent to that stock or not, but I think most. So I don't understand. It's just good to understand where the forces and the pressures are coming from, if we can.
Well, if we look at the chart that you just gave us this morning, we see a decline in single family units this year compared to last year, which certainly would indicate the demand has been affected by something, most likely interest rates.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody kind of understands that. The interesting change or new fact is 14 new ADUs, which was something we've been trying to encourage to try to address affordable housing, but it's only 14. That seems a little bit small, but program is just getting going, I think. The one big surprise is in the area of multiple family units. Not a whole lot happening this year compared to last year when we had 15 large apartment buildings built, including the ones out in Lexington. So we see that part happening, pretty significant change. And the one big bump up, according to your numbers, is in commercial and industrial. And again, I'm going to guess that has to do with the construction of the new box plant at whatever they call it now,
West
Smurfette.
West
Yeah.
Rock.
West
West-
Rock.
Used to be
Smurf.
West Rock, yeah. They sold.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
And then multiple family homes, interesting. 3 permits both this year and last year. But about $2 million more in value for this year's, which is, I don't quite understand that, but so we have some pretty good evidence. Alterations jumped, which I suppose if the interest rates are unfavorable, you fix your old house up and continue living in on that. About 200 less approvals for alterations. If I'm reading this right, but the value was about $13 million more. So again, I think the interest rates bumping up earlier this year depressed the market, shifted people to doing other things, whether it's the ADUs or home remodels.
I'd like to offer a couple of comments on that. It's very difficult to figure out what's happening based on a single data point, a single month, even a single year, and particularly when all kinds of other stuff is changing. So that's where a continuity of numbers, even a chart that says, number of dwellings in 2010 was 3, number of 2015 was 6, or something like that. That helps us see if a variation today is significantly a departure from what you might expect as a trend based on population. All that being said, my second comment on that is, while I'm picking on you for this information, you're not responsible. I mean, your job is exactly what it is you're doing. Collecting all this and trying to figure out how the world is changing is not your responsibility. It's ours. But if you can help us, that would be appreciated.
Of course. One thing to note on the numbers, the single family dwellings, we separated the ADUs out this year. That was Mike's idea. They used to be counted as the single family dwelling in that number because it is a standalone home. And we separated those out because that is a trend that we are seeing. And so we want, we're trying to encourage different regulations on people's properties to accommodate what's going on in the community and the need.
Still about 10%
Yeah,
drop.
it's a little bit lower.
From,
Yep.
from last year. Yeah.
And I don't know if this is the right time. I haven't gotten any complaints about building and planning in a while. There's been some carryovers from people you've been trying to work with, but there hasn't been anything new. The same thing with you.
Yeah, I haven't had any complaints. I'm meeting with them on Wednesday, but it's not generating from a complaint. It's generating from, I'm looking at wetland issues and the Sackett versus EPA rule and what that all means for
Yeah,
our county. But it's not a complaint generated thing. It's more of a me generated thing.
right. More of a policy kind of
Right.
thing than anything.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, the planning commission meeting this month will be the first under the new rules with the reduced membership.
That comes, so they will hear the Cowlitz County Code changing. And will take their motion and then it'll come to the board on January 30.
Mhm.
So it will be in front of them. We technically still have 9 members.
Mm.
This was the first that it could go to them to reduce the number. And so all of them will be there that are still eligible to be on the planning commission. And then at the end of January is when their terms expire. And so, and we also don't have a couple of the positions filled, which helps the numbers become 7.
And I think Mr. Sudar is going off.
Yes, his term is up at the end of January.
The commissioner, he's been on for quite a while.
2 years.
He's about the senior member, isn't he?
He is.
So
Yep.
hopefully a special honor or recognition for somebody that spent close to 30 years on
It's
it.
been 31, I believe. Yep. So that will come, that's another thing on my agenda. We don't meet with you next Monday because of the holiday, but we have a call for hearing next Tuesday. Setting that public meeting for the board to make the decision to change the
The change.
Cowlitz County Code with the planning commission number change. And that'll be on January 30. So the call for hearing happens next week. It hits the paper and then it'll be in front of the board on January 30.
Before that comes to us in a formal vote, will we get to see an executive summary of the issues?
Yes,
Okay, and
Queen is saying yes.
good. And what I'm looking for there is the county code is changing. And like everything, we ought to have a SEPA equivalent analysis, maybe not as bureaucratic, but just simply saying, we think this will cause a cost to go up or a cost to go down, or something to help us understand the impact of that change. And of course, you may have no choice on it, which is probably the case, but
And we did SEPA. We've received one comment and it was from our planning commission chair. I believe SEPA has now closed.
so you did an
I-
actual SEPA on a
Yes.
county code
because it's a-
change?
Because it's a county code change. Yep. So we received one comment and to date that I know of, I don't know, I'd have to check with,
Yeah.
but I believe we've just had one and just with
We-
their opinion.
We want to be careful of interpreting, I mean, it's been so long since the citizens have really had something to say about something because we haven't really allowed them. So once you open the gates up a little bit, it may still take some time to build back up. And of course, you don't want to build up complaints that don't make any sense because everybody wants things their way. And I'm not trying to say it has to be that. But we do crave other input, and I think you do too. Your office is open for
We are open
suggestions.
for suggestions in public. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A couple more items, then I promise I will quit taking your morning. We're working with legal. We meet with them every Monday, but we're gonna be introduced to Jason Lorraine, the new chief civil criminal. I don't know what his title is, and I apologize if he's listening. Regarding our civil infraction process and just making sure that we're doing everything we can to try to help the citizens that complain of their neighbors and or making sure our process can't be helped further on their end. Now that Doug has some staff available to help. So we'll be working through those processes.
Assistant Deputy Chief Civil Prosecutor.
I don't know what
It's
I
it's
apologize.
It's an assistant for
it's,
Doug.
yes,
So another David Berger.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So now that he's got that gentleman in place, I believe,
Okay.
we're gonna have extra help in them. So that'll be nice. City of Kelso reached out and just notifying our board. They asked if in their building officials absence of work for vacations, he's kind of a one-man show over there, that we would be able to take on some of his work while he was out of the office. And of course, we agree. So we're working on an interlocal agreement with them. And then in that same vein, knowing that City of Woodland is a little bit in dire straits right now with changing of some of their staff, we have a call in this morning with the new city mayor and seeing if there's other services that we could help out in the interim, just to extend the olive branch and see what we can do for our other jurisdictions. So we're trying to make good working relations with our cities. So we're doing what we can.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This is an opportunity to tear down some of the old Hatfield and McCoy stuff I've seen.
Well, we're all here to do a job, so we might as well work well together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then one request, we show up on the agenda every week for the postponed items, the flood hazard plan. I know Dennis was gonna take a stab maybe of the climate resiliency, chapter 10, whatever that means. Is that something that you still want to pursue?
Oh, yes, I do have some language drafted. but
Do you?
I'm not done with it yet, but.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
okay.
We would love to see it and work it through maybe the work plan, so then we can come off your naughty list of postponed items.
I
I
don't see
didn't
it
realize
as a
that
naughty
reminder was
list,
for
but
me. I forgot.
it
Does
can
the
just
board have
sit on the
anything for
shelf.
us? I know. Just stick it on the shelf. Yes, Rick.
And I don't know that you would have the answer to this, but I just, last Monday, I was down at Woodland Council and they had people come up and testify that live in two different mobile home parks where they own the mobile home inside the park and they've been purchased by, they named the name of the company. I think they talked about being the same company that bought something in Ilwaco and has been fined for doing things. And their complaint was this national company or whatever they are is now raising rates at an exponential rate. And the complaint was they're taking us out of our homes. And I don't know if we're seeing any sales or anything around
I haven't
here.
seen any.
I haven't heard of anything, but
I haven't heard anything, even that bigger corporation has bought
Okay.
out a park.
well, there was two different ones in Woodland and had quite a few residents coming in and talking about it. I don't know what the city can do, but yeah.
We'll keep our ears open, and if we hear something, we'll let you guys know. I don't know. We can try to help them find other places, but it's probably more of their preference of where they want to be
Yeah.
and where their rent threshold is.
So as not to mislead people, that's a very difficult problem.
Yeah.
And you're asking a question is a valid question, but they public shouldn't infer that we can do anything about it.
No, that's. Yeah, it's just more that I'm hearing that this is happening and we're not controller of sales.
Yeah, it's,
Just like we don't have the authority to set rents on rental units,
Nope.
Apartments.
Right.
We don't have control over what they charge for leasing a space in a trailer park.
yeah, the thing that then that's not to suggest that we as a body could do anything useful that would fight the market. And the question always is, what is the market? Well, today, on a daily basis, it's hard to assess the market. On a yearly basis, it's a lot easier. And so unfortunately, if you're in a house and your landlord says, I'm going to increase your rent by 300%, you have a choice. You can move or pay the 300%. And to move is almost a cataclysmic thing for a lot of people, because it's not just and all that, it's where is it to where I'm gonna move. But we don't have the answers, really, all I'm trying to say. Abusive people, abusive situations will occur.
Yeah.
All we have is, I think, fire and safety codes that we
Right.
monitor and try to not really intervene, but mediate the questions.
Correct. Unless it's a county.
But
owned
we're also
park.
looking at a lifestyle in which a lifestyle that's based on low cost rents, which probably means those standards are right at the edge of non-compliance, just because they're not investing money because they don't charge high enough rents. So that third party comes in and offers a buyout, the owners say, yes, get me out of here with a little extra.
Yeah.
And then somebody else comes in who's probably more attuned to the market and says, wait a minute, the value of this land is far more than what we're charging. And that's not right. That causes that dislocation that Commissioner Mortensen was talking about. And that's part of the open market
Yeah.
realities.
And I'm not trying to suggest that we have any business in dealing with the open market. I just, hearing this, and that's usually an indicator of a trend. So I was just curious if we're seeing other stuff coming around.
Well, I do know that the folks living around the Lewis River Golf Course are very concerned about the sale of that park to a developer. That's been an issue that's been looked at by our planning commission, and that involves some trailer parks as well. So I don't know if that's one of the tie-ins, but.
Well, but yeah, I'm gonna take a moment still to these issues are really important for the public to understand the relationship we've got with them. So I think this is a valid conversation to have. Too many people think that we can do things, but we can't. On a personal lament, when I see places like the Woodland Bottoms farmland being parceled off and sold off, that farmland is worth a lot more for housing than it is for farming. But that's today. Tomorrow, someone's going to be hungry and say, I'll give you $1 for a crumb or $100 for a sandwich. So, but we cannot interfere with that pretty well, but it does point out one of the difficulties that Planning Commission has and this board has. We can't tell people how to use their property. And it's a very painful thing for me to see the Woodlands Bottom, say, concreted over. The new gas station by the Woodland Circle down in Woodland, I mean, they covered up the most gorgeous blacktop earth. And I'm like, okay, I like to eat.
Anyway, that a little bit of a rabbit hole there.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Morning, Marin. I moved me.
Good morning, Marin Fox, Director of Corrections. I provided you with some information regarding jail bookings from 2019 to 2023. I didn't include all of the charges. If there's any specific charge you're interested in, let me know and I can provide that to you. It is fairly self-explanatory. ADP is average daily population. Some things of note. So, you know most of this, but COVID started March of 2020. So that was that's a point in time. And the Blake decision was February of 21. Booking restrictions began kind of consistently in December of 21 and primarily, for the most part, ended end of 22, December of 22. I combined the felony assaults and the sex offenses. I didn't drill down each charge. I just combined all of those into one bucket. So I don't know if there are any questions. I'd be happy to answer.
I have certainly heard from cities that their budgets are all out of whack because there are more arrests going on and more prosecutions, but they're at the misdemeanor level,
That's correct.
which they have to pay for both sides.
Yep.
I resist the urge to say thank you, but
Right. And I've been reporting on our population today. We were at 173. Our population's dropped quite a bit. But we're open for business. We're taking everything, but the population has dropped off.
more
Yeah.
people stayed home for family time
That's
over the
right.
holidays, we hope.
Ryan Jervikainen mentioned though that felonies were down last year
Mhm.
pretty significantly. So, but we are seeing a lot of misdemeanors.
Yeah, the chairman's gonna hate me here. To first order, when I look at the law and justice system, I think to first order, we have to ignore the costs. Like it really bothers me when people say we had to let him go because jail is too expensive. To me, that's just the path to perdition or to purgatory or something like that. So I would thank you for this. This is really helpful. Unfortunately, it's also difficult to digest because the law is changing faster than
Yeah.
anything. And and that change is actually driven in part by people claiming it's too expensive. And so I think we are largely doing things what I will call by blackmail to deal with the problem today is too expensive. So we do things today that cause real problems in the long run. So is there anything you would like us to do for you, or is there something we should be doing to help you?
I mean, we continue to struggle with hiring. That's a continued struggle for corrections in general across the state. I think law enforcement's not having as much trouble as we are. But hiring's a challenge.
Yeah. So you want us to put on a uniform in our
Right.
off hours?
Come on over. And CJTC, the Criminal Justice Training Commission, we have to send officers there for their academy as well as law enforcement. The Corrections Officers Academy is 10 weeks. Right now, it's a 2-year wait, which is
2-year wait to get into it?
unacceptable. Yes.
Wow.
2
Over
years
where,
of
I'm
wait.
sorry?
It's a 2-year wait to get officers to the academy, so they
Oh,
can't
yeah.
be fully
Oh.
certified until they attend and graduate from the academy. They're allowed to work, which is great. Law enforcement can't do that. So I think there's WASPIC is putting some pressure on CJTC to add some additional classes for corrections.
You know, I was chatting with someone who got hired back on at Western States Hospital. He had lost his job because he refused to take the jab. And is that the reason that the delay in the Western States or the latency has gone way down?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they've done. I do know they've opened a second facility at the Steelicum campus. I believe
Okay,
that's
yeah.
helped, but the Western State wait has improved greatly. But I mean, a month is still probably too long, but they broke our spirit. So now we're happy with a month.
So the time delay now is around
30 to 60. Which I believe technically it should be 15 days, but we're getting closer and, 1 month is, but I'm happy with that. But as I said, maybe that's just because the waits were so terrible for so long that we're happy with anything.
Ideally, you should be able to call and say, I got a real problem here,
Right.
take it. And it
Right.
should be within the day.
Right. There are people that don't belong in jail for sure
Yeah.
because of mental health issues, but
I do want to point out that this chart that you've compiled for us is encouraging in a couple of respects. The numbers for 2023 is purple, that's the color.
Mhm.
And if you look at the last 5 columns, starting with criminal trespass,
Mhm.
we see bookings up in all those subsequent categories.
Right.
Theft, obstruction of justice,
Mhm.
resisting arrest,
That's correct.
disorderly conduct, and illegal camping.
Mhm.
All those kinds of things that are a reflection of enforcing the laws for those who are homeless and not willing to make the choices to make changes for their own bodies.
Correct.
Um,
Yes, those are all misdemeanors.
and to me, those are encouraging signs that law enforcement is getting ahead of the game, or there's been some change happening.
Mhm.
And I think that's good news.
Yeah.
Not anything that you've done, of course, but this reflects what is happening in law enforcement. That
Oh,
more
come on,
attention-
she's got happy clients now.
Well, I doubt that, but
Happy to get to book, but they're not happy with those bills.
So,
maybe compliant, I guess, but
but you did mention something earlier regarding discussions with the city or more than one city regarding costs. I wouldn't mind hearing a little more on your thoughts on that.
well, again, they're paying those costs, but they're complaining because it was unanticipated. They didn't budget for it. So that's, they've had to really change their budget levels, shifting more into, law and justice. Which these numbers also tend to reflect.
Yeah.
Instead of relying all on felony convictions to manage law and justice, it's, I think it's being done a little bit more effectively.
Mhm.
And we don't have large scale encampments either. So,
At least none that are totally visible.
well, yeah. Show me where there's another compound and this doesn't exist. So anyway, that's, thank you. I appreciate the way you've graphed it out, and it makes it pretty plain. It is, the first, the ones where we're still far behind 2019, that, that suggests some challenging issues trying to bring those numbers back up, but
And I should have explained on the front end, this is offenses, so they could have multiple, so a person could be booked for 3 or 4 things. This is,
Yeah.
and they could be duplicated as well. So if you get booked for a theft third, which is shoplifting, and then get sentenced for the shoplifting, that would come up twice. And I do have a question or go ahead, Rick.
Well, I went by it the other day, so it raised a question. You know where the old Maple Lane Women's Facility was in Grand Mountain?
Yep.
Went by it the other day and they totally refurbished and it's got wire and raised wire and everything. Do you know what they're using that for now?
They were using it for Western State.
For Western State,
Mhm.
for some of that?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think that
Because there's a
DSHS, yes.
a big facility right there now with that.
Well, DSHS runs Western State, so that may be what that was. I
So
guess I
maybe
don't
they're
know
using
for
that.
sure if they're still operating that as an extension of Western State. They were, and it would house lower level people that are less problematic, not the highest needs
Well,
people, the easier candidates for competency
Yeah,
restoration.
my only point was it was good seeing the facility used because it seemed like it sit there just vacant for a long time, and they went through and really refurbished and did everything.
Mhm.
I want to make sure I understand. The facility is the one that's fairly large grounds, chain link fence with concertina wire over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange feeling going around there. It's like, this is weird.
Well, way back when it was it was a prison or jail or whatever for women's It was like the alternative, it was like Green Hill was the boys and
Oh, okay, yeah.
Maple Lane was the gals.
Juvenile facility.
Yeah, yeah.
Green Hill is still pretty visible, right next to the
Yeah,
freeway.
it is.
In what, Centralia, right?
Mhm.
Chehalis.
I would ask, and I don't need an answer today, what the board would be interested in seeing going forward on these meetings. I believe we're going to be meeting quarterly for performance management review. And I would ask you what you'd like to see from me. What information, what statistics are you interested in? And I'd be happy to pull that together.
I'm okay with the quarterly.
Yeah,
I know it ties up your Monday mornings, but you always bring a smile to our faces, so
That's right.
we like seeing you every week, but
But if there's specific information you're looking for, please let me know and I'd be happy to pull it together. Otherwise, you're just going to get what I think is interesting. So.
yeah.
and I always like to hear, the challenges you're facing, like hiring and those type of things. And if you have ideas that you think maybe we can entertain, I wouldn't mind hearing those type of things.
Okay.
I know it's been a challenge over there.
And I think we asked during budget time if salary levels were an impediment, and I think you assured us that we're kind of right in the mix of other counties and what we're offering, so.
Yes, I think our comps we're in the middle of the comps, which is, I think where you typically want to be. I will say Lewis County, we're very close just in every way to them as far as population and staffing levels. They dropped the bottom steps off of their pay scale to try to recruit more officers. So they've, it's a 5-step scale. They've dropped off the bottom 2 and are starting people at 3 to try to encourage candidates. We got very lucky with the closure of Larch Mountain, unfortunately, and picking up some staff there. If not for that, we would have really been in a world of hurt. But we've lost a few staff, but we have another staff member that will be leaving soon. She sold her house and is relocating. We've had a few of those kinds of things. It seems like that's happening more, but no way to control that.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen.
I gave y'all my hand up. We also have a PowerPoint.
I know it. I see.
Good morning, Kathy
Morning.
Frank Baxter, Finance Director. So I have a presentation on a monthly basis. I prepare comparison or financial information for you. And so I thought on my presentation, I would try to always make it about the financial reports that I've been preparing in the past. And for this one, we haven't completely closed out the year. They haven't booked their accruals for things like sales tax revenues, things like that. So I did some estimating, and so I footnoted that. And so the first slide is revenue versus expenses as of December with estimates included for year-end accruals. And the first, I'm doing the major funds that we normally report on, the larger funds in our portfolio. And general fund shows that our revenue is 63.7 million and expenditures 65.2 million for a deficit of 1.5 million. I thought it was interesting to note that in 2023, we made that first transfer to the Budget Stabilization Fund, and it's about, that transfer is an expenditure of 1.5 million. So had it not been for that entry, we probably would have been break even on our general fund. Because that had actually been planned to be booked in 2022, but we didn't book it until 2023 till we had the policy approved.
Gotcha.
Our road fund has a surplus, and I'm sure that has to do with projects being delayed or not completed or started. It's probably a timing difference. And then our health fund, I did check with Carol on this, and our health fund, we're showing expenditures greater than our revenues. They had planned for using some of the fund balance. So that's 716,000 or 717,000 basically of deficit. And then building and planning, woo-hoo, very close to break even revenues and expenses. Next slide, unless there's a question. This next slide is just a highlight, a glance.
I think the only thing
Yes.
I would point out, if you look back at budget for 23, we probably, the deficit was larger, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yes.
so we came very much.
Yeah, the
closer than
deficit
what-
was like about 15 million.
Right, right.
Yes.
And because we're,
And I have another
So-
slide to kind of highlight where some of that difference came
So-
from
actually, this is a much better number than what we
budgeted.
budgeted. Yeah.
Yes. And then on our revenues on a glance, these are some of the major categories of our revenues. Property tax. For the general fund, we had budgeted 21.7 million. And my forecast is that we'll come in at about 19.5. I believe that when the budget was put together, there may have been a mistake in that the budget for general fund is actually three pieces. It's general fund, veterans assessment on the levy, and also mental health on the levy. So the three together pretty much equal the property tax budget, but reporting wise, we report those in separate funds.
Okay.
So I made sure for this year's budget for 24 that we brought that budgeted revenue back down to closer to what actuals have been.
I was just gonna say, knowing you, I'm sure corrections have been made.
Yeah, I already made that correction for the 2024 budget. You can see it also, this comparison also shows what the actual was for 2022 compared to 23 actuals. And they're tracking pretty well, slight increase. And majority of that was, there was some increase in the levy. Not a full 1%, but also some of that is your new construction as well. So for the road fund,
Kathy, I've always noticed in my experience when industry is healthy and growing and expanding, our tax revenues benefit from it.
right,
So,
that's where your majority of your construction or new construction comes in, or the value, higher values.
so while there's opportunity for us to be supportive of major employers and major mills, we still have great opportunity for developing what used to be the Reynolds aluminum site as another source of potential, tax revenue and jobs and, the benefits to the whole economy.
Sales tax, this is where I had noted our budget was under budgeted versus what we actually achieved. And so this is tracking pretty well. With another slide, I'll show you our year over year sales tax has increased a modest 6%, basically. And then the next one, it's really the behavioral health tax. We've been under budgeting that revenue, but once that sunsets, I'm not going to have to worry about budgeting the revenues for that. But this shows you that we're well over what was budgeted in that category as well.
So again, in my experience, I've noticed that the various finance officers that I've worked with over the years always have a lagging figure for that sales tax intentionally. That builds in an extra cushion,
Mhm.
but we're
To your
always
fund
budgeting
balance.
on the previous year's revenue. So it's always behind a little bit, and I think that's appropriate. I mean, that's a good way to make sure we've
Yeah.
got a safety cushion as we need.
So I
Um,
budgeted your sales tax to be a modest 2% increase over prior year actuals. Yes.
Is it reasonable for you to provide us? Okay, my objective is that you've identified here the property taxes. Most people think that entire property tax comes here. And I would like to know what the number is. So if we get the general receipts that Deborah Gardner gets in for, here's my check for my property tax. It's got the kitchen sink in there. I want to see what all of that costs compared to what goes into these funds, because the public will get a much clearer idea what's going on if they see that.
Like gross property tax and then what property tax goes to the general fund?
Right. And what goes to the general, to the road fund or the general fund, that's sort of money we have control over. We're subject to lots of forces, but we can mess with that a little bit, but with everything else, we typically can't.
But gross property taxes in this county probably significantly higher than 19,554,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
And I do feel sorry for residents in Kelso particularly, because although they voted it in, but they voted special levies for the fire district as well as the school district. They got a double whammy. They're going out for another levy this, next month. So.
and then there's another question. We've sort of talked about that a bit. It seems like, and I've not seen it charted this way. It seems like we had sales tax revenue coming along, and if we go back to 2008 or 9, we should see a drop in sales tax revenue.
I don't go back that far with the county. I know that there was it leveled off in 2014. That was the first time there had been this kind of leveling, but it didn't really go down. It just kind of stayed parallel for a year and then resumed its inflation based.
What I'm looking
I'll
for.
add that as a slide or as an extra piece.
Okay, thank you.
Like
Yeah.
a long-term trend. I have the monthly trend in this package, but I'll add multi-year trend.
There's that old expression from science that says nature abhors a vacuum. Well, nature also doesn't think it's normal to come along and all of a sudden you blip up. And I want to see if in fact it does blip up like that. And are we at a new plateau that is stable, or is the increase beginning to do this? Yeah.
I hope that you are fortified to no change in the public's response about where property taxes go, because they always bring it here for everybody. And that's that structural thing. You can't convince them that we don't have control, because that check goes to Cowlitz County Treasurer. So,
Yeah.
All you have, I have found that you just simply have to refer back to that statement that itemizes each of the different governments that the sale or that the property tax is parceled out to. And even then, you know, what they're really complaining about is the consequence of their property values increasing. That's
Right. You know, most of everything I inquire or try to press on is just people need to know exactly where things are going or them so that they don't make these assumptions and then go to the polls and make even bad assumptions or ask for things that just aggravate their problem. The public has
well, for
almost
the three of us, they haven't made bad decisions yet.
well, I don't know, but I would like them to feel that they have a say in that.
And the next slide may get to part of your question. Property taxes collected data. There is a report that comes out monthly.
Oh, yeah.
And it breaks down all the property taxes by the different components. And I'm just showing you a snapshot of one page. This is like page 81 of a big report. And it comes from the treasurer's office. But I thought this one was important to show you that property tax assessments for the general fund started out at 19.5 million, and we collected year-to-date receipts through December. We collected 98% of the assessment that we started the year off with. And then, of course, then she has all the different years assessments and what the balance was at the beginning of the year and what the balance is at the end of the year as far as those collections. So this might be where I can get all the other, the gross, as you said, the gross.
Yeah, I do like the numbers in 2014. I'm only being mean-spirited.
Yeah.
That means by 2023, 100% of 2014s were collected.
Yeah.
There's a lag time there. Well, I know we have a house in our neighborhood that has been abandoned by their owners. It's a messy divorce and they refuse to sell the property and taxes are always in arrears until the last moment. And it continues to crumble before our eyes.
This is a trend. I want to make sure that you're aware of it. It's a very good trend. We're collecting the majority of all of our property tax assessments.
Yeah, if it's something and it dives down to 90 and 88 and stuff, then you have an issue going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then the next slide that I have is a monthly comparison of the sales and use tax to the previous year. A little chart. I had to estimate November and December on sales tax because we haven't received those distributions from the state yet. It's a 2-month lag, but I just took an average of last year's November and December, and for 2023 placed a number there for us with a 2% increase. And that just shows you it's been rather erratic, but for the last few months, it has been up over what the previous year was. And with this one, I can do the multi-year, have a little supplement, maybe make this into 3 pieces. And then recording revenue is the next one. And this is the auditor's office has been doing this for a while, tracking their recording revenues and comparing month to month as well. And I'm happy to report, I mean, it's coming down, the variance over the prior year. We saw that it was declining, but it seems to have slowed that decline. So it looks like it's somewhat stabilized there on the recording fees.
Does it make sense to look at this wouldn't be for you, looking at the recordings as a count rather than a dollar. From your perspective, it has to be dollars, but from our perspective, maybe it's the counts, going back to the statement the chairman said about it tells you whether you've got a problem. If all of a sudden 98% pay becomes 90% or 98% compliance, 90, we know we have a problem. And here it would be really nice to know how divergent recordings are versus building and planning clearances, if you will, that kind of stuff. But hey, we could have fun here. We could give out a master's degree.
No thanks.
You think some of this is dock recording fees, slow down in sales?
Yes,
Yeah, that's
it's dock
probably the
recording
majority of
fees.
that, right? Yeah.
Because marriage license is a different charge. So I think this is dock record fees. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it'd be, and I would concur, if the information is readily handleable, available, it'd be interesting to see what the doc reporting fees categories down 50% or whatever it is. Or marriage licenses are down or whatever it is, any large variances.
The one bit of data we don't track are the sales of property, except that it's as reflected in document recording fees. But just as, we can do the new construction or the remodels, that's what building and planning does. But the sales is, somebody else must track that, but I don't think that we do.
I can see if they actually have the count, and we maybe could add this to the chart, the numbers.
It kind of insulates you from, as the fees change, then the sales number doesn't have to be as great to achieve the same fee. So it kind of insulates you from fee changes when you just see raw numbers.
I see our auditor is online. I'm curious that there was a discussion of the impact of the doc recording fees going up strongly. And, a marriage certificate, do you really want to pay $300 for a recording of that?
If you make a decision to buy a $350,000 home, though, I think they've discovered $300 is not going to stand in your way.
Right. I mean, that's a truism. But I think our auditor was trying to figure out, or the auditors in general, trying to figure out how to make the difference between one document and another document for a recording fee. Is Carolyn, good morning.
You're on mute.
Oh, well, we can catch that.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
There you go.
Yes.
Sorry, every time I remote I was in Arizona with family over the holidays and I have to change all my speakers and settings. So sorry about that. I did want to make a clarification on marriage licenses. That is one of the document types that wasn't affected by the recording change. So when you pay your fee up front for a marriage license, it also includes the recording of that once the ceremony is performed. But you're right, Arn. I've worked with other departments, specifically building and planning and environmental health, we scoured our document types, trying to find documents that weren't necessarily required by law to be recorded. And we were able to catch a few with environmental health that we are able to internally file for free rather than ask for a citizen to pay the $300+ to record. So if other departments are in a similar situation, they're watching and they're in a similar situation, if they are requiring a document to be recorded for a reason that they don't have a statute that is concrete to back it up, please contact me to see if we can work something out. We really don't want to pass that fee on to people if we don't have to.
Carolyn, you mentioned marriage license. What about divorce decrees?
Well, that's with Superior Court. So Superior Court's different. I would assume that all of their fees, are all inclusive in that packet. It's not something that's recorded over here.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We're more interested in answers and questions, aren't we? Sorry about that.
To help.
Okay, and then the next
Thanks,
slide.
Carolyn.
The next slide I have is salaries versus budget. And this is where, we budget for every position to be filled for the entire year. And so this is where part of our, making our, that running afoul of deficits. So for example, in the general fund, we budgeted for 29.5 million in salaries. And my forecast right now is that we're going to end up at the expenditure range of about 26 million. So that's 88.7% of budget. This is where budget comes in. Actuals are coming in less than budget. Correspondingly, you see the same type. I didn't show it, but benefits also are under budget because of vacancies and things like that. So, but as compared to the prior year, we're up, and these reflect step increases, COLAs, things like that. So they're pretty consistent. I believe on the building and planning, their increase this year over last year probably had to do with several termination payouts that they had that increased their direct labor expense, their expenses there in salaries. But all of our salaries predominantly are under budget, with the exception, even road fund is under budget, just not as much as the other categories.
Question? Health fund is HHS.
Yes.
Does it make sense to look at, when we look at salaries, does it make sense to look at what? Okay.
I just selected the largest salary expenditure categories. But I could do all salaries, budget versus actual, if you would like, for all funds.
I'm trying to figure out, no, we usually in the private world, you end up with, this is your salary and this is what it costs us, the overhead. It's an overhead rate. And I'm trying to get a handle here because a lot of these, much of our costs go up tied to various things, including healthcare. And I think again, it's part of, I want people to be able to understand where everything is so they can appreciate the magnitude and the problems they face and we face. So I don't know if it makes sense to pull that out or not.
Do you recall what number we used for that overhead? I remember a figure around 17%. That's added to.
I've seen some documents that have an overhead rate, but when I'm looking at it, it's with retirement, medical, Social Security, paid family leave, all of that. It's higher than 17%.
Yeah, that part, yeah.
Yeah, in industry where I worked, if you got your overhead rate under 150%, you were a genius.
Where I came from, we budgeted 30 to 40% for our benefits packages.
Yeah.
So what you're asking is maybe we should track the overhead rate? Is that what you're asking too?
I would talk to Kathy on that in detail. I don't know how much meaning that has, because like in industry, if I have 10 people on staff to do a job and I bring in a machine to replace those 10 people, I have just shot my overhead through the roof, but I've done the right thing. So I don't want to put in a misleading thing, but it's really important to know that there are costs that are going up all over the place, which include healthcare, and that probably being the chief one there.
I think liability insurance has gone up quite a bit.
Liability is a good
Yes.
one too. Yeah.
Yeah, so like for example, some of the overhead rates I've seen that we're using is more than just benefits. It includes the IT charge, because the IT charges, all the internal charges as well. IT charges by person and device. The risk charges by labor hours. And so
Yeah.
industrial accident is personnel based. So all those that are personnel based overhead rates included.
Yeah.
It's all fully costed out.
That overhead number would be useful. It includes the insurance, it includes IT, it includes everything we pay out, and then divided by the dollars of the salary base.
Yeah. I look at those things as it's good, and because then if there's a drastic change, we should be able to have an answer for it. And the answer may be totally legitimate, but at least it's a tracking device. And if something happens, then you either have an answer for it, or you say, oh, what went wrong or what changed, and you can fix it or at least identify it.
I remember one year, fuel costs jumped up pretty dramatically, and we had to change all the little formulas that accounted for travel and operations of the vehicles. And there was a surcharge, and it came back off when the price went back down. But yeah, that's one of those things that we have no control over generally, other than we buy in bulk and, encourage staff to use those P cards.
I can get that information. The next slide, I don't have anything to populate it yet because we're too early and we haven't closed out the year, and I don't feel comfortable estimating totally the fund balance yet for general fund. But I think in March, I'll use this format to show you where we're at as far as the policy adherence, general fund plus the budget stabilization fund. And then that is a percentage of annual expenditures, and making sure that we're in line with our financial policy.
Isn't it usually around about the third week of February that it shows that we're in bad shape? Because April 30th hasn't shown up yet for taxes to be paid.
Yeah, cash wise, yes.
Cash wise, yeah.
But I should have the final financial numbers so that I can report what general fund looks like closer to in the March reporting. So
back on that chart with the sales tax revenue by month, did you take into account the 2-month lag?
yes, so the numbers that I'm reporting on that chart are it's not the month we collected it, but it's the actual month that was earned. It was the earned month.
Okay.
So
January was down, but then that's because people spend their money in December.
Yeah, I
mean, that's not unusual for that to go back down in January. April was kind of a surprise. Don't know what happened with that one. That was
right.
It's an outlier.
Your April of 2022 was the one that was a real outlier.
Right.
So
Unless there was a COVID check that went out to everybody, but I thought it was a little earlier than that in the epidemic.
So these are the numbers, and then my last page, just to give you some of the projects that I'll be working on for 2024, and I'll try to keep you updated on the progress of those and or in any challenges that I'm having.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate the work you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any suggestions on this, if there's something different, because I guess I'm slated to come you get to have me every single month. I'm not quarterly. I think I'm monthly.
The updating of financial policies and procedures, I assume we are behind.
I think this is countywide, and this is an initiative that Kelly is spearheading. Our clerk is spearheading, and so there's a whole section on financial policies, and some of it is mine, some of it is the treasurer's, some of it is the auditor's. So
I guess what I'm sort of thinking on that is it's nothing you do overnight.
no, it's not. It's probably going to take the whole year
Okay.
to do it right. And I'll be assisting risk management on updating theirs as well.
Okay. We haven't done this kind of spring cleaning in the entire time I've been here, I think. Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I like these chairs.
Yeah, they're better, aren't they? Gentlemen, good? You want a 5-minute recess before we head into the next? Or are you good?
Sure, 5-minute recess is
Okay.
good.
Why don't we do that?
The recording has stopped.
Okay. We're back from recess. We're headed into the portion of where we can go over consent agenda and touch on items on that. I think. Susan, did you have anything you wanted to touch on these? It looks like a lot of these are right-of-way things.
So yes, good morning. Susan Eugenius. The first items, item number 3 is a Public Works amendment to one of our solid waste contracts. It's just a time extension for them to complete task orders that they had already been issued. So it's extending the contract to the end of February. So there's no money associated with it. It's just to finish a couple tasks they were working on. Then items 4 through 9 are all right-of-way items. Item 10 is the confusing saga of the Eric Creek culvert, WashDOT keeping us on our toes and wanting us to make changes to the supplement. For the first time ever, they wanted us to include in the right-of-way phase local dollars. So that is the only change from the last time you approved it in December.
And this is at the request of WashDOT.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is a new thing in all our other supplements. We've always just used local funds for right-of-way and we've never had to include it. This time, all of a sudden, it's what they want. So that's why the change. Item 11 is a bid award for culvert pipe. This is something we do annually. Excuse me, we accept all bidders, not just the low bidder, and there's a reason behind that. I'll give you an example. So if we have our road crew down in Woodland working on ditching, they need some wattles. The low bidder in this case for that particular item is up here in Kelso for $38.70. The bidder in Woodland was $40 for the same item. But if you're only buying 2 of those, the production and cost is actually less expensive for us to have it purchased in Woodland. So that's why we set up this multi-bidder option so that if there are occasions when cost of running up to pick it up will actually cost us more, we'll buy from not necessarily the lowest bidder, which is allowed by state law. So we had 4 submittals, and so we're accepting all bids. So the supervisors will be able to make that decision throughout the year. Item 12 is similar. It's for sign materials, but we award that by section. And so there's a breakout of each section of who it's been awarded to. The final items we have are items 13 through 15. This is also right-of-way related, but this is right of way from an old project, the Hazeldale Road realignment project. I think Commissioner Weber was the only one here when that occurred. It was a 2013-2014 project. As part of that project, the intersection of Hazeldale Road and SR 411 West Side Highway was realigned. There was an agreement between WashDOT and the county for the right-of-way that is directly related to West Side Highway, that the county would maintain it and monitor the slopes for 3 years. Since that point, we have been working with the state to try and get them to accept that right-of-way. And we finally, through much diligent work from our right-of-way agent, have this agreement to move forward, and this is the format they wanted it completed in. So it's strips of 3 parcels along West Side Highway.
So that intersection had been at an angle, a pretty sharp angle getting onto West Side Highway, which meant there was a blind corner, very difficult to anticipate traffic coming from the north, I believe, and hence was very difficult. Didn't that involve removing a house or a building?
Yes, there was a house removed. It kind of set down below where the new intersection is because we went from that angle, what we refer to as a Y, turned it into a T intersection. to the south of where the intersection is, the house was removed.
It wasn't
And then if I
very
were-
old house either.
No, it wasn't.
No, and it was actually purchased and moved to a different location.
Oh, okay.
And then another, if I remember correctly, I think this was the one, there was some complications dealing with wetland mitigation. There
Yes,
was
this
some kind of
is,
elaborate work done adjacent to the stream.
yes, down in that hole to the south of the intersection there was,
Leckler Creek.
that is Leckler
Yeah,
Creek,
yeah.
yes. So
And this finishes it up.
This
finally,
finishes
at
it up.
last. Wow. Oh, well, improvements to the
Took a-
Rainier Bridge have taken longer to figure out and hasn't been done yet.
So any questions on those umpteen million items that we have this week?
That answers them for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bryn, I know you had something on here.
Hello, I have an item on the consent agenda. I spoke with Commissioner Dahl and Commissioner Mortensen about it. I didn't have a chance to touch base with Commissioner Weber. We have a contract and an amendment to our contract with NAFCare on the agenda. In December, Terrence Arakaki, our long-term jail mental health counselor, resigned and went to work for the city of Longview. And we opened that position and at the same time reached out to NAFCare to see what it would look like if they took that position under contract. We only received 3 applications and we've decided to go this route. It is a increase of about 146,000 for the added position. The position itself was about 130,000 fully loaded, although not including some overhead costs to the county. So it's not exactly a break even, but pretty close. And we asked them what it would look like to do a 2-year extension. This contract would have expired in March 1, 2025. So we asked for a 2-year extension to see what those numbers would look like. And they came back with 3% and 3%, which I think is very reasonable. And I think this is a good decision for the county. OFM, Risk, and the prosecuting attorney's office have looked at it and support it as well. Are there any questions?
So you said originally you'd expected 1 professional to be 130 and we're getting 2 for 246.
No.
Is that right?
So just some history. Jail mental health counselor has been a position in offender services for as long as I've been with the county, so 24 years. And then we added 2 jail mental health counselors through the mental health tax. I'm not sure what year that is, but a number of years ago. We reduced that to 1 under the NAFCare contract during COVID when our numbers dropped. So right now, the setup is we had 1 jail mental health counselor that worked for the county and 1 that's covered into the NAFCare contract, a non-county employee that does that. So the transition is to have 2 mental health counselors under the NAFCare contract rather than 1 for the county and 1 for NAFCare.
And NAFCare, the time we've had them been performing for us and stuff and.
Right.
And
Yes.
so they'll just take on that employee and do the same work we were doing.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe it reduces liability to the county as well. I think it's a good decision.
Yeah.
And the other piece, it's not kind of neither here nor there, but they created a subsidiary. So this amendment also puts us into that subsidiary, EverHealth, which is a part of NAFCare they created for the state of Washington for all the sites. They have most of the jails.
The names have changed, but the but the service hasn't.
No, that's correct.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Marin.
So I did have a question perhaps for Carolyn. On the consent agenda, is an agreement with Teresa Johnson for managing the ARPA monies. That's, is she taking over for, or is this a continuation of an agreement? I know we've contracted with Teresa before.
Can I promise to get back to you in a couple of minutes because I'm just off of vacation and I haven't even looked at it. So give me just a couple minutes.
Sure. All right.
Did we have any questions on our motion items? The resolution from us is we're talking about this red line policy. Okay.
And I'm just gonna guess we know what Jessica's gonna talk to us about. Item 18.
So I have a motion item tomorrow. First contract that we have ready to go on for 2024. It's the corrections clerical cooks contract. It's a 3-year agreement, so 2024 to 2026. Just to go over the highlighted changes of this contract, adding a floater for after 6 months, so they'll get 2 additional floaters. Article 5, they have a bonus leave article, and we've changed 22 and over to 20 and over, so they receive their 22-year bonus days at year 20. Leave sharing, I'm trying to standardize our donated leave throughout the county. Currently non-represented employees and a few of our other bargaining groups can use donated leave after 6 months. So I'm trying to standardize to all of our groups be able to use it after 6 months. This group was previously at 1 year. Leave, the employer has the ability to approve a leave prior to hire. So if they have pre-approved vacation, whatnot, then the employee is able to do that and take leave without pay. Health benefits, an increase of $50 each year per month for the employee. So 2024 employer contribution is $1,700, 2025 is $1,750, and 2026 is $1,800. This group has Teamsters insurance, so their rates are different and they have different options than normal county insurance. And then for salaries, adding the ability to place the new hires with relevant experience at the relevant step, which is something that we have across the board now. And then Appendix A is our cost of living increases. So for 2024, it's a 5% increase. 2025 is a 3.5% increase. And 2026 is a CPI range with a floor of 1% and a ceiling of 3.5%. So the minimum COLA they would receive is a 1%. The max would be 3.5. There's 4 employees in this bargaining group, so it's our smallest group. Do you have any questions on this contract?
So you said 4 employees?
4 employees, yes.
Is there any possibility of consolidating with a similar?
This group has been in this group for quite some time, so that would be on the union or the employee's choice.
It's just that it's a pretty expensive bargain for you.
This one only took a couple sessions, so they're a pretty reasonable group, and we were able to complete negotiations pretty quickly.
Okay, all right. Super. You said the magic word, they're reasonable.
I don't have anything else. Anything on it? No?
All right, thank you.
Are we really 20 minutes ahead of schedule?
We are. Is this, I'm just looking over this Cowlitz County policy. I'm assuming this is just, we're just kind of cleaning up the one we had. And I see comments, so Doug and people have had a chance to look at all this and they're good with it. Okay, that's all I really needed. Okay. But we can recess to 11, since it's presented as 11 on the agenda. I think we need to stick by that and not move them forward.
The recording has stopped.
Oh, you've got a hand up by the clerk of the board.
Oh, Kelly.
This meeting is being recorded.
The auditor's office is available now, so I was bringing her over as panelist so she could talk about her item on the consent agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Camilla Eastman with the auditor's office. I'm chief accountant. I did hear that you had some questions regarding ARPA and the CPA contract that we utilize. Okay, did you have specific questions?
Yes, I recognize the name Teresa Johnson from other contracts with the office. Is she taking over for Kaylee
No,
on monitoring the ARPA funds?
No, she is not taking over. This contract with Teresa Johnson is on an as-needed basis. We don't utilize them often for ARPA. It's really just when we have special issues that arise to ensure that we stay in compliance. There's a lot of Treasury guidelines, and so if it's a very specific issue that the county is facing with how to use the funds, we'll utilize their office, but it's just as needed.
And I think I noticed a whole new set of guidelines that came out
Yes.
this week.
Yes, there's a lot of guidelines. They're continuously coming out. They amend guidelines. So we like to make sure that the county stays in compliance.
Have you had a chance to analyze those new guidelines? Are we getting more discretion or less discretion on the use of the funds?
We haven't had a chance quite yet. That's one of our things to dig into this week. So as soon as we see them come out, we try to get to them within that week. And I do want to mention as well that the guidance that we receive from the CPA is fully reimbursable by ARPA. So it is reimbursable funds.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a clarification, when you say fully reimbursable, that means that whatever we pay for this, for the service, we bill to ARPA as new, and they would provide us new funds. It doesn't take out of our current ARPA funds.
It does take out of ARPA funds. We have already allocated amounts to this, but yes, it takes out of the funds that are allocated currently.
Well, I could only hope, right?
It would be awesome. It'd be great if that's how it worked. I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Okay. I think now we can recess till 11.
The recording has stopped.
I don't know why this is. It's coming from.
Okay, back from recess. Our 11 o'clock is for human resource. So go ahead.
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I do have one request to fill today from Office of Public Defense. Their legal specialist has, or sorry, their office specialist has promoted to legal specialist, so they're requesting to fill her position of office specialist.
I think that's the domino effect he mentioned when we talked
Yeah.
last year.
Last year. And that's the only request I have. I have a request for executive sessions. The first would be collective bargaining for 5 minutes. Second, performance of a public employee for 5 minutes, and then qualifications of an applicant for 5 minutes.
So 3 of them. Collective bargaining, performance of a public employee, qualifications of an applicant, all 5 minutes.
And maybe I could add one on, it's probably under contract discussions.
Okay.
And that will start at, depends how much we want to go. Make it 10 minutes. It could be considerably longer.
Contract negotiations.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have collective bargaining, performance of a public employee, qualification of applicant, all 5 minutes, contract negotiations, 10 minutes. Okay, we can take care of them.
You guys want to come back together, that's fine.
Anyway, yeah, it's posted now. You have someone.
The board is extending the executive session for 5 minutes until 11:35.
Yeah. Creates wealth, creates power. Yeah. But the old Arab proverb about my grandfather rode camels, I drive Mercedes now, my son will be on camels again. Okay, we're back from an executive session. No decisions were made. I'll turn it over to Jessica.
Good morning again, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have two confidential settlement agreements, and I'm requesting a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the proposed agreements, which have been substantially presented to the board.
Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize you to go ahead and sign those confidential agreements on behalf of the board.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. I'll just take a quick peek if we have any hands. I don't see any. We'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And then I have a request from the treasurer's office to start her new chief deputy at step 3, effective January 16th.
I
Good.
move that we start the treasurer's chief deputy, step 3.
Motion on the floor. Call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then last item, the auditor's office is requesting to increase the salary scale for their staff accountant from salary grade 500 to 525.
I move we approve the salary adjustment as presented by staff.
Motion to accept staff recommendation on the salary scale. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye.
Thank you, commissioners.
That take care of everything? You like having your own time slot? Anything else before we
So-
adjourn?
Just on a miscellaneous, a general discussion, probably Dennis would know best. On some of the boards, there's an approach wherein there's a motion item on the agenda, but we don't talk about it until someone has made the motion itself. Then we talk about it. And then in others, we do like we do here. We talk about it for a while, and then maybe there's a motion, maybe there's not a motion, and we talk about it again if there is a motion. Is there a proper constraining opinion on that?
So a precise reading of Robert's rules would suggest make the motion and then discussed. But Robert's rules was made for large groups.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other part of Robert's rules is the chairman conducts the meeting in the way that it feels is appropriate unless challenged by the board. And I'm comfortable doing it this way, hearing the staff report, and then, somebody has to make the motion. So I'm okay with how we're doing it, and it's consistent with Robert's rules. But the body has the right to change it at any time, so.
I appreciate that. Yeah, key in this is occasionally a constituent says you're not following Robert's rules of order. Well, you're precisely identifying what Robert's rules are for 500 people there who have standing and a vote as opposed to 3. World of difference.
Yeah. But I've been in other meetings. I think the Behavioral Health Board, there's a very elaborate process, and there's only 5 of us. So I always thought that was a little overreach, but.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. And then if it's of any interest, I had mentioned Dwayne Leaf, the director of the Three Rivers Waste Water Agency. So we're in discussion more or less, and I think Kelly, the clerk of the board, will be trying to figure out, is there a right time for him to come in and just speak in general for us, in general for the public and for us also. I think his intent is to talk about their plans for the solid waste investment that they're putting in. And I call it an investment because they have plans to monetize that. Because investment's often used by politicians, which is, no, it's an expenditure. Sorry, you're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
Just to let you know,
Yeah.
By the way, that's an impressive operation.
Pretty amazing job. And the interesting thing is relatively isolated from public influence.
It's magic. And that's the other thing. Yeah, as part of our message is try to let people know, no, it's not magic. It's well done, but it is done by humans.
I think you may discover as time goes by that their negotiating strategy is much more generous than we do with our employees. I think they were just very generous in their last contract, and it was reflected in the rates that we all approved. So
you're talking about the wastewater folks,
right?
I don't.
Turwas, yeah.
But okay. Then another topic. Do we have any updates on the juvenile detention center, or is that something I let fall through the cracks? By that I mean a discussion of, can we come up with a plan with Lewis County, say, that says we'll cooperate and we'll save both counties. And of course, you can't do it by RCW, but the only way to get, you can't pretend you're going to change the RCW in any finite amount of time. But if you come up with a plan and present it to the legislature and say, can you make a motion and accept this by exception right now, that's the seed you need to start the tree growing.
So when I had a conversation with Commissioner Pollock a year ago at the November conference.
Yeah.
And we mentioned it, and she was
not this past November, but
not the past one, but a year ago. She said, yeah, that makes sense.
I think there's
when
appetite.
I followed up with her this last November, she said her commission's not interested.
That's
so I don't know.
Interesting
messages or what.
I had talked to Commissioner Swope, and he has some interest.
Okay.
So that would be 2 out of 3 right there.
Yeah. I would think that would be enough to go forward. So
well, yeah, it would be enough to go forward. With me, like you say, you're not gonna probably get anything until they'd have to make an exception, but if we don't even have any type of agreement to
There's
ask
nothing
an
for them to
exception
look at.
for,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know where we really want to go from here.
I've got some of the data. I have the pertinent individual at Lewis County with whom I would start the conversation. I think it'll be up to him and maybe me in part, but maybe you would be one of the executive assistant assignments to try and work out a draft idea how we could cooperate.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and continue then something that I set aside because among other things, the holidays, and our chairman was going to meet and discuss some things, and that turns out has no impact on this, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I read a Centralia article the other day on the YMCA project out there, and the judge pretty much overturned the commissioner. So I don't know where they're going to end up going with that.
As I read through that article, it was it was one of those situations where the commissioners appeared to have interjected political discussions into a land use issue. And that's, he questioned the YMCA on their position on critical race theory, among other things. And then rejected them because he didn't like their answer, or at least that's the impression that I got from reading the article. And the courts, the YMCA sued and said, you can't make a land use decision based on that kind of questioning. That has nothing to do with whether we're meeting the the requirements. And there was a concern that there certainly was the camp, which could handle up to 400 visitors, was so remote that there was no way to provide appropriate law enforcement. There was a concern expressed verbally, but the sheriff didn't put it in the impact statement. And so the court has directed the board to reverse their decision and to grant a permit so they can go to the next step and work out the details on mitigating the concerns that have been raised. So that was weird. Have you ever been to that region, Mineral?
Yeah, I'll take a bike ride, cross over from Morton into Elby and work around there. And
Wait a second. He doesn't mean bicycle. He means motorcycle.
Oh, motorcycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
A twist the throttle type bike. Yeah. Yeah. And you ride by there and you know how people put out no YMCA and all that.
Oh, is that really?
So I know the area they were looking at right in Mineral there. Minerals, it's just like a one lane. You drive into the town and you drive out of the town. It's just kind of.
So when I read that, I thought
it's between Morton and Elby, which is one of the entrances to Mount Rainier.
Oh, okay.
And Elby is like
kind of north central county, right?
Yeah, if you fall down, then you'll come into Fife and
okay,
head up into Tacoma.
From here, you'd go to Morton to hang a left to go up to Paradise, and you're saying it's right around there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, at first I thought, I didn't realize Lewis County had a YMCA. And then on further reading, it was the YMCA of Greater King County.
Yeah.
So it's from King County that they want to build the camp.
They want to put this campus, I guess what to call it, out in Mineral on some property they have.
And the intent of that is a campus specific to some function, or just another YMCA?
Camp, a summer camp or something
camp,
like
that.
A camp.
A camp. Well, so when I was growing up, camp was very modest cabins with a single light bulb and 12 guys. All right. I mean, pretty rusty. Okay. Yeah. But we've also been to YMCA camps where they have been subdivisions and you rent the homes. And so the encouragement is with family reunions. So I don't know how grand the Greater King County YMCA was planning to do it, but
they have a camp out there, and I can't remember the names of it, for troubled youth that you can send troubled youth to.
Is that still going? As
far as I know.
And that's in Lewis County.
Yeah, I think that's still Lewis County there. Between Morton and Elby is still Lewis.
It always surprises me. That's all new to me. And it just is, there are programs all over the place. And we have no solutions, but we have a lot of programs.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, we will adjourn.